Alright, seems more like my voice is somewhat back. I probably still sound very nasal. I have been sick for the past week and it's been not fun at all. I might even have to cough a couple times in this video. But anyways, hello you sexy beasts and welcome back to War Thunder. The whole YouTube apocalypse aside and me making about half of what I'm supposed to do normally, let's ignore all of that for now and give you some gameplay of the upcoming Yak-3T. Now, if you haven't been living on a rock, you know of the current events going on in which you can play to win yourself 4 premium vehicles. The Russian Matilda, the PV2 Harpoon, which both are currently actually releasing today if I'm not mistaken. Might actually do videos on those as well. And later on we'll be getting the Yak-3T. And I think the A33 Excelsior, if I'm not mistaken, or I might have stuff turned around, I'm not too sure. Anyways, you might be asking yourself, how am I playing the Yak-3T? It's not in the game yet. Mike, are you hacking? Is Gaijin giving you special privileges? What is happening? No, not quite. This isn't random battles. I do not have the aircraft myself just yet. However, anyone can play them. I'm not going to go through the whole process again. I already did a video on that, explain the whole mumbo jumbo, which you can find in the link in the description down below. I think I explained it there, but it should be there, yeah. But essentially you just go to historical, to dynamic campaign, do some stuff, and you can find yourself the Yak-3T. Now the Yak-3T is a Soviet-Russian prototype fighter. Why is it prototype, you might ask? Well, this thing was designed for an anti-tank role and is fitted with a single 37mm N37 cannon, which carries 25 rounds, and 2 B-20S cannons with 200 rounds in total. Now, quick distinction here, this is not the 37mm cannon found on the MiG jets. That's the NS-37. This cannon is the N-37. As I said, this prototype was designed for anti-tank use. The cockpit was moved back to compensate for the heavier nose due to the extra weight of the gun. These guns can get pretty damn heavy. And some engine modifications had to be made as well to accommodate the larger gun. The problem is, with those engine modifications, the engineers ran into overheating problems, and as such a program was discontinued. This 37mm cannon is extremely fast firing. For a 37mm cannon, this thing is really fast firing. It's not even comparable to the 37mm M4 cannon found on the P63s, yes, P63s for example. This thing fires very quickly. And of course, being a 37mm cannon, this can also be used in a anti-bomber role. However, you do have to keep an eye out on where you put your shots. The muzzle velocity is on the low side compared to your 20mm cannon especially, and this actually do require careful shot placement. Either you have to be a master with the 37 or you're not going to hit much. Given that the cannon fires so quickly, it also chews through its 25 round ammo capacity very quickly, leaving you without ammo halfway through the battle. And you can't really spam it at range, because if you spam it too much, the cannon will just overheat and start becoming very inaccurate, essentially turning into a shotgun. Now the gameplay you're seeing at the moment is realistic mode. So I did try simulator mode later on, you'll see some gameplay of that as well. The aircraft felt a little bit sluggish. Now, the main performance of itself is pretty much as expected from a Soviet fighter. It has decent acceleration, it has a decent top speed, it has a decent climb rate, it has a decent roll rate. Doesn't really shine anything particular though. One thing I did notice is that the energy retention was actually quite good, especially when doing turns, for example. The thing was able to maintain between 350 to 400 km per hour in a turn constantly, no problem. However, the turning circles seemed to be rather large, which is a problem when you're facing off against stuff like Spitfires, for example, which have no problem with not turning you. Now, one quick note here I should do, however, before mentioning the stats, or well, mentioning what I felt of the stats, since we can't really see the stats just yet. One thing you have to keep in mind, however, is this. The way that War Thunder works, if you don't have an aircraft, and you take it into a test flight, for example, even premium aircraft, which this thing might actually be, I'm not 100% sure, but I have heard that this thing will be a premium aircraft. If you don't have the aircraft, When you fly it out in a test flight or in a dynamic campaign, it is treated as if it was a stock aircraft. So performance in-game might actually be much better depending on what modifications you can actually unlock and, well, if it's actually a premium and has all the modifications unlocked. Now the top speed at the ground level was only about 560 km per hour. I say only, but honestly that's not all that fast, given that this thing will probably have a decently high battle rating. I mean, this is a Yak-3 after all. And of course it doesn't help that the red line of the aircraft is also very quite bad actually. Typical of Russian Yak aircrafts, especially when you think about the later Yak jets. This thing in a dive can only reach up to 650 km per hour, around that I think. After 650 km per hour you break your wings off. That's not a lot, that's really not a lot, especially when you compare it to stuff like the P-47N, which can go up to 800 km per hour in a dive. This thing can't exactly dive after the enemy, it will break itself quite handily, so that's something for you US pilot to keep in mind when you are facing off against these things. Another interesting fact, or well, couple of facts, is this thing does not have any kind of war emergency power. It only goes up to 100%. This might be a reflection of the, well, the aircraft itself just not having any war emergency power, or it might be even a reflection of the aircraft having overeating issues, not overeating, but overheating issues in real life. Now thankfully in the battle itself I didn't really notice the aircraft overheating all that much. It did overheat after a while, but I was flying around pretty confidently and I just had to throttle down just a little bit to cool it down again. If you're using manual engine control then you can manually adjust the radiator, you're probably not going to have too many issues with this thing overheating. Another interesting thing is, this thing does not get either combat flaps or takeoff flaps. You only have two positions, no flaps or landing flaps. Now this doesn't mean that you cannot use the flaps in combat, you just have to be very careful with them. You have to kind of be constantly toggling the flaps in a turn or else you're just going to break them off. Next up I tried simulator mode. Now one thing I immediately was very impressed with was the cockpit. The cockpit is very clear, very clean, it has great visibility all around. You can literally look directly behind you, which is something I really appreciate in simulator mode. It makes it really easy to spot anything that's behind you, above you, to the sides of you, in front of you. The guns mounted in the nose make them relatively accurate and also result in, well, not really having that effect of wing-mounted guns where they can kind of sink up and rock you side to side. You won't have this with this aircraft. The guns are pretty accurate by themselves, but they're also very difficult to aim due to the strong rudder. This is something I didn't mention before. The rudder of this thing is extremely strong. In fact, it's so strong it reminds me of the late Spitfire rudders. You know that rudder where you can simply hold down the rudder and it rolls the aircraft by itself? That's the kind of rudder you have on the Yak-3T. In fact, I've stalled myself out only using the rudder. Now this rudder might make for great evasion capabilities, of course, but it also makes it quite hard to go for fine aim tuning that you do require with the 37mm cannon if you are using a joystick. Now finally, I couldn't really test the anti-tank capabilities of this aircraft, and given that we couldn't really see any of the modifications, I don't even know what kind of ammo choices this thing is going to get. If it does get good ammo choices, this might be very interesting in combined RB battles, being a hybrid fighter/tank hunter, and it might even be very interesting as a bomber interceptor. However, keep in mind, your cannon fires very quickly, the 37 that is, and it doesn't have much ammo. The 25 rounds expand very quickly due to your high rate of fire, and I do definitely recommend binding the 20s and the 37 to different keys. Just make sure you never really find them at once. The good thing about having two different calibers of cannons here is that you can simply use the 20s perfectly fine for air-to-air combat against enemy fighters. The 220s are nice enough, they're B-20Ss, they're not the schwack cannons which you have on the early Russian aircraft. They are good cannons, they have 200 rounds, you can do work with them. You might not be able to carry entire games with them, but you do have enough ammo to hold off 1 to maybe even 3 enemy aircraft. No problem with that. The 37 does not have much ammo. Again, depending on the ammo choices, you might be able to use it in an anti-tank role, although keep in mind, don't spam it. Do try and use it in a single fire mode. Or you can use it in an anti-bomber role, but it's not really great against fighters simply because the muzzle velocity between two cannons seems to be too great of a difference to be able to hit both the cannon systems, both the weapon systems accurately. And of course, well, yes, when you hit an enemy fighter, it's great, but most of the time you're going to waste all of your ammo trying to hit an enemy fighter with the 37mm cannon and not really having any chances. So, if you want to fly the Yak-3T yourself and are doing the events, well, you don't really need to be doing the events. I'm guessing if you are doing the events and you're going for this aircraft now, you know what it's like, more or less. Hopefully I have given you new energy to complete the grinding tasks. If you are not doing the events and you maybe thought about buying the aircraft with the boxes, if that's a thing, I'm actually not sure this time around. Well, now you know what the aircraft is like too. Or if you just want to play the aircraft by yourself and don't care about actually having it later on, or even playing other event aircraft like the AMD that we had in the past event, well, dynamic campaigns it is. Anyways lads, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like rating, it really helps out the channel. If you're new around here, don't subscribe just yet, check out the channel first, watch some other videos and see what you like. There are a couple more videos coming up, if I can actually keep my voice up, which is looking to be rather hard. Yeah, I really need to get better. Streams are coming soon, TM. In fact, I'll have an announcement to make. Let's just say YouTube might be taking a backseat for a while, given the whole situation. I'll explain it better in another video, dedicated video. Anyways lads, as always, my name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.